Hi there, ladies, and welcome to another episode of Orgasmic Relationships. I am your host, Sharika Matthews, life coach and relationship expert. What comes to mind when you hear the phrase relationship burnout? When I hear the phrase relationship burnout, I immediately see an image of a woman who's carrying the weight of the relationship success on her shoulders. No matter what the sacrifices, no matter what the personal cost is going to be, she is determined to make this relationship work, no matter how hard she has to work and no matter how long she has to work. But according to one expert, relationship burnout occurs when one or both partners in a relationship start developing feelings of exhaustion, depression, and even resentment and pessimism about either their partner or about the direction the relationship is going. And for many couples who don't recognize that they're building up these feelings, or even if they don't realize how much work they're really doing for the relationship, they don't often see those signs and symptoms, and it'll end up with them feeling even more resentment and possibly lead to breakups or divorce. So to help us take a deeper dive into what relationship burnout really is and how to revive a relationship, I have our special guest with us today, Carolyn Sharp, who is a relationship expert and couples therapist who helps busy, overwhelmed couples revive their relationship and go from blah to bliss. Welcome, Carolyn. How are you today?
I'm great, Sharika. Thank you so much for having me on. It's such an honor to get to be with you here.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you taking your time here today. And this is another one of those conversations that I am really looking forward to, because I think, and I see this a lot with women because I work with women mostly, but I see relationship burnout happening with women who aren't just dating someone or married to someone, but also see it in people who are dating, like just trying to find that partner as well. So I wanted to ask you, from your expert opinion, what is relationship burnout? How do you define that?
Well, first of all, this is such a critical conversation to be having right now, because so many couples are struggling. So many women in relationship are struggling. So I'm so grateful that we're talking about this. But I define relationship burnout in a lot of the ways you've just mentioned. A period of time, a phase in the relationship where the energy is leaving the building, and where we're feeling hopeless, we're feeling resentful, we're feeling like we can't see the light in the relationship or at the end of the tunnel of struggle that we're having, and we feel like giving up, or like we're getting much, much less than we're putting in. So that's really how I define it.
Yeah, and anytime you begin to give more than what you're getting out of the relationship, that's always going to leave you feeling depleted. And just even from my experience, I feel like it also affects other areas of your life, right? Because I've been in relationships before where I don't know if I got to the point of feeling resentful towards that person or towards the relationship, but I've definitely felt as if, I was feeling hopeless about the relationship, not feeling as if there was going to be a healthy future for us. And you kind of lean back or start pulling away a little bit. But some people begin to lean more into it to try and force it to work. But either way, it begins to have a negative effect, not just in your relationship, but also in other areas of your life.
Absolutely. Right? And people don't realize that, we're born in relationship. As Harville Hendricks is the one that this quote is from. You're born in relationship, we're broken in relationship, and we're healed in relationship. As babies, we're completely dependent on other people, right, for our survival. And that is wired into us. So relationships for those of us in committed, intimate relationships happen to be the thing that has the greatest impact on our physical and emotional health. It's not to say everything else isn't important, but we're neurobiologically wired together. And so if our relationship isn't going well, if, we're crabbing at each other or bickering or whatever it is, it takes a toll on us, and we'll be distracted and irritable and not sleep as well and all that sort of stuff. And so when we get burned out, it's hugely impactful. And so we do need to figure out, I talk about it in terms of learning to work smarter, not harder, because we will just lean in and keep doing and doing and doing, sort of upping our efforts in the same ways we've been doing it. And, resentment and tiredness is a signal that we're not doing it in the way that's working. And we need to shift gears in order to find a better way to revive the relationship, reconnect to our partner and reconnect to ourself, because that's part of the challenge in burnout is we're flailing around in exhaustion, trying to find something that feels restful and healing and connecting, and none of it's working. And so we just keep spinning out.
Yeah. You brought up so many good points here just in that one statement, Carolyn. I don't think we really realize how important relationships are. I mean, when we talk about relationships, our immediate thought goes to romantic relationships or marriages or something like that. But from the moment you're born, you're in relationship.
Mm-hmm. Before we're born,
and
really.
Even before we're born, right? And when we talk about relationship burnout, it is not solely for romantic relationship. You can get relationship burnout with family members, relationship burnout with siblings or coworkers. Relationship burnout can happen in any relationship. It just so happens here we're talking about romantic relationship. And what did you say earlier about relationships? We're made in relationship. We're healed, we're broken in relationship. Say that again for me.
We're born in relationship, we're broken in relationship, and we're healed in relationship. So it all happens in relationship. All of our emotional learning happens in relationship. All of our emotional strain happens in relationship to our job, relationship to our boss, relationship to our neighbor. All of it happens in relationship. And it's through those relationships that we heal as well. It's incredibly powerful and difficult. Relationships are just hard because humans are sort of, I've been talking about this a lot in the last few years. Humans are just a disaster of a species. I mean, we are the most self-destructive species. We're the only mammal that compares ourselves to others in our species. There aren't dogs and whales sort of ranking the other dogs or whales around them. We do that. And it's the source of war and all of that stuff. So being in relationship with another human being is just difficult. And I mean, one thing I want to speak to about burnout, I'm sorry, I'm going all over the place. There is so much trauma and strain and scary things happening out in the world, a global pandemic, all of the injustice happening in our country, all the violence happening in our country, both physical violence, political violence, verbal violence, all of it is so traumatic. And so, we were locked inside for a long time with sometimes just ourselves, sometimes just another person. And sometimes, in my household, there were 6 of us locked in a house. And so the form of relationship burnout that takes place across that spectrum, from a person living by themselves to a person just with their partner to a person with their partner and their kids and maybe their parents and all that sort of stuff, there's many, many layers. But in terms of burnout, we're experiencing individual burnout and have no place to go with it except into our relationships. And so, is it relationship burnout, or is it just burnout that is getting applied to the relationship because we have no place to go? I threw a lot out at you. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. But your last statement is something I hadn't thought about before. We're experiencing burnout in general, and then we're bringing that burnout energy into our relationship. And it's important to differentiate between that and relationship burnout itself, because, I still work full time and I work in the chemical industry. And I don't know what has happened over the last 2 years, but the workforce is bare minimal. Like, we are trying to hire and there aren't people to hire. And it's across all the industries here, like from bus drivers to teachers, engineers, doctors. Like, where did people go? And so now you're in your day-to-day life, you're almost in survival mode every single day because you're working all the time, you're stressed all the time, you're fighting all the time for your job or for projects or for whatever it is you're doing. And then you come home and you have all that pent up frustration. And unfortunately, we don't always take it out on sex. Sex is a great way to release some of this frustration, but it may come home and it may show up as just regular frustration, or it may show up as, you don't like being home anymore. You don't like being in a relationship. It shows up in so many different ways. And so it begs the question, Carolyn, what are the dangers of confusing personal burnout with relationship burnout?
That's such a intense and important question. They're huge. And this is something I'm encouraging people in my coaching practice so much, is to recognize how hard things are right now. And early in the pandemic, when I was talking to folks, and early in, the political strife that predated the pandemic, people were very aware of it, and talking about it. And I was encouraging them to use their relationship to support each other. And then we piled the pandemic on top of that. And at a certain point, people become exhausted from even acknowledging it. And so they just don't want to talk about it anymore. But the impacts of it are still huge. And if we're not talking about it, it's going to come out. And it comes out. And I mean, you see this everywhere, as you were just speaking about the overwhelm in the workforce. And as a result of that, the people in the workforce are dealing with more impatient customers and coworkers and bosses because everybody's stress is mounting. I think about what came to mind is flight attendants, bus drivers, people in the travel industry who are dealing with, they're overworked. They don't have enough staff, and customers are being ruder and ruder and ruder. So that stress upon stress upon stress. And then they go home. They don't want to talk about it because they're just too tired. But that stress is going to come out. So we have to talk about it. We have to acknowledge to our partners that we're overwhelmed and stressed and just so frustrated from the world sort of being taken out on us by, if we're a checkout clerk at the grocery store, people are ruder to us. If we're, anything. And so we have to use each other for support around that and name what are the different levels of stress, so we can differentiate between the relationship stress and the life stress, because otherwise we're going to deal with it to the person that's in front of us, which is most often our partners. And so that's what I'm trying to help people detangle. Is this really a relationship problem, or is this a function of everything else in the world that you're bringing to your relationship, and help figure out what's what so that we can correctly work on the things in the relationship and then provide coping and support for the things that are outside of the relationship.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So how do we, because even thinking in my own life, personal stress is real. We live in a stressful world. I think the past 5 years has been stressful. And as you were talking, I'm like, we are 2.5 years into this pandemic, and we're still talking about the pandemic itself and the effects of the pandemic on society and on our relationships. Like, back in 2020, I would have never imagined that this would have been so long lasting and the impact of it being so significant. And like you were saying earlier, I find myself coming home and not wanting to talk about the stressors in my life, whether it's the stressors of work or, the stress of what's happening in the news and injustices and all that, because I'm like, That's stressful. I don't want to talk about that at home. In an effort to try, what's our favorite catchphrase now? Protect my peace. Trying to protect the peace at home, the peace that I have with myself. I don't always want to talk about that. And so it becomes, but if it's not addressed, it's going to come out one way or the other. And so what are a couple of indicators, maybe one or two or three indicators you can think of that would signal to us that we're mixing up personal stress with relationship stress or relationship burnout?
Well, I think that I want to speak to first sort of the strategies we're employing to deal with just the general overwhelm. I mean, you're exactly right. I don't want to read the news. What am I going to open the paper to see the internet to and see today? Because it isn't going to be good. And what can I do about it? And so there is an overwhelm, and I don't want to talk about how rude people were or what, I walk to my office and I pass incredible, homelessness and poverty. And it's just like, I don't want to think that the world is just overwhelming. So what do? I don't want to talk about it. I want to check out. So we turn on the television, I'm dating myself. We turn on the Netflix or the Hulu or whatever it is and just tune out together. And so first I want to say, if you notice that you and your partner are joining in just tuning out to stuff rather than connecting, that's an indicator that probably you're both overwhelmed and you need to find ways to sort of turn the switch back on of, all right, we need to access each other for actual engagement and support. So that's the first thing I want to say. And then what are the indicators? If there is, a significant change, and it may not be like a light switch, like all of a sudden it's worse. But if you think about where your relationship normally is, what its normal baseline is in terms of laughter, in terms of cooperation and collaboration, if it's been just sort of climbing over the period of time, and now more often than not, the new baseline is you're snarkier with each other, or you're not as grateful with each other, you're not as engaged with each other. Those are the indications that there's a problem. And we all take out our outside stress in our relationship. That happens normally when we don't have a million things. Now it's just, there's just too much. There is just too much, literally too much for our brain to process, to be able to process things. And there is this feeling like, well, this is just normal now, so I just need to go back to living and just sort of deal. And well, that's a lovely idea, but that it doesn't make it less stressful to just pretend that it's less stressful.
Right.
So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I think
was I specific enough about the indicators that things are not going well, or that we're acting out our stress on our relationship?
Yeah, I think you were, but I think the underlying theme is that you have to be self-aware of where you are mentally and emotionally, and ask yourself the question, why am I feeling this way? And my background is engineering, and so we have this thing called root cause analysis. And part of root cause analysis is to ask the 5 whys. Why am I feeling this way? Why is this bothering me? Why? Till you really understand if this is a Sharika issue, or is this a Sharika's husband issue, or is this a world issue? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think Go ahead.
Well, I would agree with you 100%. And the real magic comes in relationship when our partners are learning to ask this from us. And particularly for relationships with women, because women tend to not want to be a bother on others. And so we will, I don't want to bother my partner because, they're tired, they're stressed. And so we will not share our stuff. We won't voluntarily share our stuff. So it's so powerful to have our partners ask us, how are you doing with work? Yeah. How are you doing with what's going on in the world? How are you checking in? And women have had a rough few weeks.
Yes, yeah.
So there's more, again, another layer of stress and fear about what it is to be a woman in the world right now. And so, having our partners check on us is so powerful. And that is one of the things that I'm training couples to make a habit of, not just how's your day, but a deeper question and a deeper check-in, and to look for the physicality of that answer rather than just listen to the words, because words can lie. I can say I'm fine when I'm not,
absolutely.
and women do this a lot, but our bodies will tell the real truth. Because I could say, yum, to something I don't like. But if you're looking at me, you can tell, yeah, this isn't her favorite. And so for couples to be looking at each other and checking, how do you look in terms of your level of wellness and peace?
Yeah. And, if I had to summarize what you said, I think that what you're saying is one of the keys in helping to revive a relationship too, or just keep the relationship in a healthy, growing space, is when both partners learn to be attentive, not just to the words that are coming out of their mouths, but attentive to the energy and the state of being that your partner is in. Because if you're not paying attention to each other, you're probably lacking also in different forms of intimacy. Because if you're unable to pay attention to my words and my body language, chances are you're not paying attention to my words and body language when it comes to sexual intimacy or physical intimacy or emotional intimacy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%.
And that leads to a whole world of new problems there, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and what you're speaking to is so profound because, like we were talking about a few minutes ago, this overwhelm with everything that's going on leads us to sort of look down. We're not looking up and looking around because it's like, I can't see another thing that is stressful. Yeah, the blinders on of like, let me just look at my knitting, or let me just look at the TV, or let me just look at what I'm cooking. Rather than looking up, because we just can't, we're afraid we're going to see something else. And that is happening. And, that's another indicator that there's a problem in the relationship, that there might be a transfer of stress onto the relationship, is we're not looking up because we're scared our partner's going to have more stress, or they're going to tell us something we don't like, or that they're unhappy, and we just cannot handle anything more. But it's such a mistake, because we're either going to do the work in relationship to prevent the problems and to create growth, or we're going to do the work cleaning up the mess from not doing that, because there comes a buildup of stress, of distance, whether it's in our sexual life where we're not talking about that we haven't had sex, that we're missing sex, that the sex hasn't been great, that we're not really getting the pleasure that we each deserve. We're not talking about it. That's not making our sex life better. It's making it worse. And so now we have to have a bigger conversation as a result of not having those little conversations along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's important to do the work. And and you said this earlier, relationships are hard. We know this is a known fact. It's not going to go anywhere no time soon. Being in a relationship with another person, even being in a relationship with you, sometimes can be hard. But you have to do the work. You have to do the work. Mm-hmm. The work, you're going to do it in the beginning, during, and in the end. You're going to have to do the work. But this, and bringing it back to burnout here, because another form of burnout I'm seeing is burnout from carrying the weight of the relationship solely on you. And so now we have to ask the question, how do we differentiate between doing the healthy work to create and sustain a healthy orgasmic relationship? How do we differentiate that bucket of work from the bucket of work that leads to burnout?
Oh, that's a mouthful. That's it. That is a big question. Well, and here's some spicy, here's a bit of a spicy answer for you, which is that sometimes when we are carrying the weight of the relationship, we're not in fact doing productive work for the relationship. That work that we're doing, that effort we are putting in, is something we're doing for ourselves. Whether it's because it's what we think we should do, or we're afraid our partner will leave us if we don't do that work, or we're scared of what'll happen if we, let go of the work. All that sort of stuff isn't in fact work for you, my partner. It's work for me. The notion of codependence that is sometimes what you're referencing, is often misdefined as I'm doing everything for you, and therefore that's codependence. I'm not actually doing it for you. I'm doing it for myself because I'm worried you're going to be mad at me. You're not going to like me. You're not going to approve of me. So one of the pieces is it's fear-based or it's shame-based. I'm not worthy of love unless I do all of the work.
Yes.
And so again, that speaks to the working smarter, not harder. So figuring out, relationship, and this is a little obvious to say, but relationship is a team sport, right? We both need to be engaged with it for it really, truly to be working. So if somebody is over functioning and someone is under functioning, it's still a team, but both the over functioner and the under functioner are participating in that dynamic. Because the overfunctioner needs an underfunctioner to be an overfunctioner, and the underfunctioner needs an overfunctioner to be able to underfunction. And so they both have to engage in, let's find a healthier way. And so the conversation starter that I encourage couples to have is, are you happy? Is this working? And happy in the relationship sense, is this satisfying to you? Does this feel healthy to you? And to encourage them to be really honest with themselves and each other about whether this feels like it's healthy and balanced, because often in that over-functioning, under-functioning, it takes on a parent-child dynamic where somebody feels like the mom. That's not orgasmic. And nobody wants to, have sex with someone they feel like they have to tell to pick up their underwear off the floor. It's not a sexy dynamic.
That's with their mom or their daddy, right?
Right.
We're not doing that.
No, we're not doing that. That does not feed the positive juices that create the sort of orgasmic relationship that we want. And probably the person on the other end who is the one being told, nagged, told to pick up their socks or whatever it is, doesn't feel good either, because they feel like a kid in the relationship. Like mom's just, they're not attracted either because that's the person that tells me what to do all the time, or is mad at me because I'm not more enthusiastic about things, but I'm not more enthusiastic because the way you approach me is from a negative orientation. So in differentiating between the good work and the bad work is the outcome of the work. If you're putting work into the relationship that isn't bringing you back connection and joy, it's not the right work. Like it's not, you got to totally look at approaching it from a different angle. You have to look inside and go, what am I looking for here? And if it's not to put pure good in the relationship, to make you feel loved, to make us feel connected, if it's not from that pure place, it's not going to work. It's not going to land, because it's like, if I give you a gift and then I want you to tell me how great the gift is, that gift isn't for you. That gift is for me. Does it feel good when you tell me, oh, you picked the perfect thing? Yes, but that can't be why I pick a gift out for you, to get told I did a good job picking the gift out. So, a little spicy.
That's good. I really love that answer. And again, you dropped so many gems in this one answer. But the one I want to connect to here is the definition of work for the relationship, which is work is good work in the relationship if it brings you connection and joy. And again, it comes back to your relationship with yourself. Do you know what brings you what brings you joy and what makes you feel connected? Have you had that conversation with yourself about what you want to experience in the relationship and how you want to feel in the relationship? And this isn't to say that I want to feel joy and passion every single day, every hour of the day of the relationship. We got to be a little realistic here, right? It can happen for, 24 hours probably. But, relationships are hard. Relationships take work. Relationship goes through ups and downs and seasons. But overall, are you joyous about the relationship? Overall, are you feeling connected on some level? Do you feel as if you're being your authentic self? Because, when you said earlier, oftentimes when we're in the overachieving mode and we're working hard for the relationship, it's coming from that place of fear, of shame, and looking for something you're not even know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And so we really want to step back into ourselves and take some time to ourselves and be clear about what we want and be okay. And this is another thing I'm seeing too, relationships, being okay if what I wanted in year 1 of the relationship is completely different than what I desire in year 5 or year 10 of the relationship. We are growing and evolving human beings. And we have to allow ourselves to grow and evolve and allow our partners to grow and evolve. Because when we're up in here trying to carry the weight of the relationship, it's because I think it's because we want our partner and we want this relationship or situation to fit this predefined mold. Or this vision of what we developed when we were 10 years old, of what a man is, of what a woman should be, and of what a relationship / marriage should be. And that, I believe, is also causing a lot of stress, unnecessary stress, and unnecessary burnout in relationships.
100%.
I don't know if I'm talking to anybody specifically here, but
lots of people.
But
it goes back to that. We're born in relationship and broken in relationship. We're just doing what we were taught, and maybe explicitly taught, more often implicitly taught, where we're just modeling what we experienced in our early life in terms of how we were parented, with a lot of if we were underparented and there was too much independence and that was what we came to expect, you just do it for yourself, or overparented, or that women were supposed to do this and men were supposed to do that, we're just repeating it. And so that sort of self-inquiry and ideally couple inquiry where we're talking together. And I just created a new guide for couples to help them have these conversations specifically about money, sex, and time. But to have the question, what were you taught about being in relationship? And do you want to continue doing what you were taught in relationship? Or do we want to develop a new way of being together, that evolution into a healthier, more connected, more conscious relationship where it's not just, we're just, automatically doing what we were taught, but instead we're making choices of, you know what, I'm paying attention and this doesn't feel as connecting. We don't feel as connected when I just do this automatically, and help each other recognize that we're in that automatic mode and say, do you really want to be doing this? Or are you just doing this because you feel like you have to? Especially around sex, are we just doing the thing that we were taught to do or not taught to do? Because, sexuality is something that it isn't really healthfully taught in the United States. There's a lot of shame and goofiness around what we're supposed to do. And so learning to have safe, healthy, honest conversations with each other is critical. So you can do that self-inquiry.
Yeah. And I think having those conversations and learning how to effectively communicate and accepting the truth of whatever it is you're communicating, that will help us so much with avoiding burnout or recovering from burnout or taking the necessary steps in order to have a healthy relationship with yourself and with your current or future partner. And I phrase it like that too, because when we begin to have these conversations with our partners about our expectations, about our desires, about what makes us really happy, sometimes the truth that comes out of that out of that communication may lead you away from that relationship. Mm-hmm. Instead of continuing to do the hard, I'm going to call it selfish work of staying in the relationship because you want to have a 30, 40-year marriage like your grandpa and grandma, or because this is your third marriage and you're so embarrassed to have to get another divorce, or because you like this person so much and you just want to be with that person that you're willing to sacrifice anything and everything to be with that person, even your happiness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if we're able to accept our truth versus trying to change our truths to fit what we were taught, what we were shown, and what society has to say about it, we would be so much better off, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, we only get one life, right? And the choice to stay or to leave a relationship should be made because it is right for us and no other reason. Any relationship offers the potential for healing, to do that work, to be the relationship that heals us. We have to choose to do the hard work. It's totally valid to choose not to. The unhappy part of my job is helping couples break up when it's time to break up. But any relationship can be healthy and can be fixed from whatever broken thing is there, as long as both people want to. Except the exception being violence, that cannot be fixed. If there's violence that's taken root in a relationship, it needs to end. But anything aside from that can be fixed as long as both people want to do the work and want to be with each other to do that work together. But it's totally valid to leave, and people should leave if it's not what they want. Because we only get this one life.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's important to point out, like you said, relationships are where we heal, and healing also can bring about connection. Because we said earlier, how do you know if you're doing the right work in the relationship? And the right work will bring you feelings of connections and feelings of joy. And while the healing process may be uncomfortable, the healing process may be painful, but the process, if you're both doing the work, will also bring about the level of connection and a level of intimacy that either you've never had before or you're experiencing a new level of it. So I wanted to put that in there because I'm seeing that people are running away from relationships when it requires us to do the work, when it requires us to do the healing, thinking, oh, this don't feel good. I might not be in the right relationship, but it may be necessary in order for you to have that connection, intimacy.
Mm-hmm. I so appreciate that, because there is this, I don't know, a rash of people being like, just leave. It's okay. Just leave. You should leave if you're not happy. And it's like, well, all right. Yes. And hold on a second, because we're going to jump from relationship to relationship to relationship if we don't realize that the pattern that we carry ourselves forward into the next relationship. And the next relationship is going to have some of the similar issues. And it's easy to look over there and go, it's you. I picked the wrong person. I always pick the wrong partner. Well, you're picking because that's what your brain recognizes as familiar to you. And that it's choosing on purpose because there's healing in this opportunity. There's healing in every opportunity. We have lessons to learn in every situation. And so jumping to another thing doesn't guarantee happiness. And even that sort of like, it's smart work if it's connecting and joyful. Yes. And it's also going to be difficult. I mean, it's like, going and doing a hard gym gym workout. It's not really necessarily joyful running on the, walking on the treadmill
No,
or doing the bike or whatever.
at
But
all.
at the end of it, you feel healthy, and therefore you feel connected to yourself that, all right, I've done something good for myself. So joy can take different forms. I don't want to be selling myself as, a rainbow and unicorn person that like, oh, it's just, you'll know if it's joyful. Yes, but that joy can sometimes be the joy that comes from doing really hard work.
Right. Awesome. So let's shift gears a little bit, and let's talk to the couples or the woman or man who is in a relationship. Both partners have admitted to feeling the relationship burnout, the resentment, the dissatisfaction, or just the tiredness of it. How, we talked about the first step is having the conversation and understanding what you both want out of the relationship. But what else can we do in order to revive the health and vitality of the relationship as well?
There are so many things that we can do. I mean, first is that conversation to address what's happening here. What are we noticing that isn't working? What are we noticing that isn't healthy? And encourage safety to be honest about that, because in relationship, we say we want honesty, but really we want the information that we want. We want people to tell us that everything we're doing is great.
Right.
We want to be able to tell them that what they're doing is not great, but we want our partner to tell us, oh, yeah, I love the dinner you cooked and everything you do is perfect. So we have to acknowledge and encourage honesty. We have to acknowledge that it's hard and then encourage it so we can hear what isn't working for our partner. So to have that first conversation, to understand together what isn't working, and then to sort of work together to figure out what do we want? What do we want more of? And once that is done, there are actually, people get overwhelmed. I mean, that's the sort of looking down and looking at Netflix, because we get overwhelmed thinking about what it's going to take, what we imagine it's going to take to change things. And it's much easier than people think. Because there are very simple, quick things that we can do, like maintaining eye contact with one another for a sustained period of time. I don't mean 30 minutes. I mean like 30 seconds, where we just gently stare at each other. I mean, gently maintain eye contact, because eye contact is how humans wire together. That's how we co-regulate our nervous systems. So making sure to make time to be in eye contact with each other, whether you're sitting on the couch or across the table, to do that. To make sure and greet each other in a loving way when we first see each other after being apart for any significant period of time in the mornings, because that's a place of reconnection. And so a smile and a hug, or a smile and an I love you, I'm happy to see you, all that kind of stuff. That we develop a practice of gratitude with each other. And I know that's really cliche and everybody says that, but it's really easy, particularly when we're burned out, to focus on the things that are not going well. And so to train ourselves to notice, he made me laugh today. She made me, a coffee when she saw that I was sort of dragging. To focus our attention to those things can lift things. And then to intentionally, just to name a few, to intentionally bring play into the relationship every day.
Yeah.
So whether that's putting on a song that you both really love to dance to, sharing a meme that's really cracks you up, playing a literal game, something that brings fun back into the relationship. And you can do that for, the longer, the better, obviously, but you can do that for 2 minutes and just remind each other that, oh, right, we can have fun together.
Exactly.
It's connected, not watching TV, but, something that's connected, ideally with eye contact.
Right. Some kind of interaction with each other. And I think that I do believe that last point about having fun and bringing intentional joy into the relationship is an important key for a healthy relationship, not just recovering from burnout, but just a key to healthy relationship. And that's something that me and my husband, we started in the wintertime this year. Because we're in Chicago and winters here last like 9 months. Like, I don't even understand it. Oh my God.
And then you're in hell because the summers in Chicago are also brutally hot. So you go,
the summer, I come alive.
ah,
Let me tell you, I told my husband, I was like, I'm going to be in these streets all summer, right? I have to be outside. I have to be in the sunshine. If it's sunshine outside, chances are I'm going to be outside.
nice.
So, but in the wintertime, yeah, in the wintertime, we started a fun night. We have a fun night. I think it's like every Thursday. Then we have date night on Saturday or Sunday. And which really helped us because in the wintertime, it's really crabby here. Like, you don't want to go nowhere. You want to do anything. You really get into this rut of just coming home and watching TV or coming home and browsing the internet or something like that. Mm-hmm. But bringing that type of fun night and joy night into the relationship has really been fun. We don't do as much here in the summertime because we're outside much more often now. Mm-hmm. But in the wintertime, I'm like, we got to bring this back into the relationship because it's not only is it fun, it creates memories. It gives me something to talk about. So I think I'm the storyteller of the relationship. And so it's been really amazing. And you may not know this, Carolyn, but we're recently married, so we're still like in the honeymoon phase. But
that's amazing.
We're in our 40s. Mm-hmm. Thank you. We're in our 40s, and so we have this pre-marriage life of work, traffic, grocery shopping. Like we do life, and so we're not in our 20s where we're going out on the weekends and doing all this extra stuff. So we're much more adultish or grownish. And bringing that sense of freedom and sense of fun into the relationship, I think has been really good, not just for our relationship, but for also our mental and our emotional health as individuals too. So I am a big proponent of
absolutely
of not just doing the hard work, but doing the fun work outside of sex. Because it's oftentimes will probably lead to sex anyway. But
yeah, exactly.
Doing it all.
Doing it all. Well, and couples get, I frequently get asked how important is date night, and date nights are fantastic, and fun night, I love that. I'm going to steal that, I think. I love that. And for some couples, it's not logistically possible, and they get really stressed of like, we've got young kids, and by the time the young kids go to sleep, we just want to pass out. We're so tired from our jobs and our young kids. Amen. Yeah. Absolutely. Totally get it. So if you can't do a fun night and a date night, or just a date night or just a fun night, you can do it in 5 minutes. You can, put on that crazy song and dance like idiots in your living room where you're just being super silly. So not to be afraid from, if all you have in a day is 30 seconds, do it. I mean, and it comes down to priorities because, we make time for brushing our teeth a couple times a day, a few times a day.
Yeah.
Why don't we make time for our relationship? Because relationships don't take care of themselves. They don't. People will get married and then just check it off the box. Okay, life achievement accomplished. I don't need to do anymore. I don't need to think about my relationship anymore. Wrong. You have to do things every day, like weeding the garden or, picking up your house or doing your dishes. You have to do it every day or it piles up.
Exactly.
So
and
3 seconds a day, it doesn't smell good. Exactly right. Absolutely.
You let your dishes pile up or you let dirty gym clothes pile up, guess what? The shit stinks.
The shit stinks. Exactly right. Yep.
Exactly what happens in the relationship. If you don't take care of it, it began to get funky.
It gets funky. Exactly right. And like no shame to couples that have let the stuff pile up because it has been an overwhelming couple of years. I mean, like you said, it was like 3 years. I would go back to 2016, 2015, the last big election cycle. Anyway, that's when I would start naming it back to when things really took a spike in stress levels around the U.S. But it's been a stressful period of time, and going into survival mode, as you talked about, exactly right. So there's no shame. I don't want people to not talk about it and be ooh, I'm embarrassed. but just, all right, it's never too late to pick up the stanky stuff and throw it in the wash and start anew. And by start anew, I mean, all right, let's clear the decks. Let's reorient and create some new habits. And you can start with like 30 seconds a day, if that's all you want. And once that feels good, add another new habit and add another new habit up to like, I have a guide that's like in under 20 minutes a day, you can do these 5 things and notice an immediate response to your relationship. And
that's really key, because some of us who are probably natural overachievers, like we're always probably the teacher's pet when we were in elementary school and stuff. We like doing work, but sometimes when you get in a position where you let the relationship kind of tend to itself and it didn't, you feel this sense of shame about it. And now you feel overwhelmed about all the things you have to do in order to get the relationship back on track. One bite at a time, 30 seconds at a time, 5 minutes at a time. You are not obligated to do everything all at once at the same time. That will burn you out.
Yes, it will.
And it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible. It's impossible to go from doing nothing to trying to, build a spaceship to Pluto. You're probably not going to be able to do that in your lifetime.
Right.
In
Exactly.
24 hours.
Exactly.
Well, but if you take 5 minutes to figure out where Pluto is, it's a starting point.
Absolutely. Well, and what you're talking about is coming from like that panic energy of like, oh my God, I've let this go too long. Let me fix it. Let me do all of the things. And that's not going to be connected. It's not going to be connected to yourself, and it's not going to be connecting to the relationship because you're like freaking out and just trying to do everything. Your partner's just going to be like, what's happening over there? What are you doing?
Right.
Because if you're tuning in, it's like, all right, we're going to play now. Well, wait, is that matching where your partner's at right now? Or do you need to sit and sort of connect with the fact that they're feeling sad? So it is about, tuning in. And so those slow, quick steps, I just said opposite things, but slow, easy steps are the key to making sustainable change.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Carolyn. I want to ask you before we end our conversation today, what is one thing you would like our audience to take away from this entire conversation we had today?
I think the main thing that I'm repeating a lot is for couples, for people to be gentle with themselves, to understand how hard it is right now, how hard relationships right now. And so to give yourself, you and your relationship care, and sort of understanding that it's hard on a good day. And these are not good days that we're facing out in the world. Yeah. So to be understanding and to turn to each other and use each other as a resource, that you're both going through it and it's hard for both of you, and to connect around that. And this is 1.5, to get support, because people think, and culturally this is taught, that it must mean something bad about your relationship if your relationship needs support. And that's crap. And it makes me so mad, because it is the hardest thing we do as adults, is be in a healthy relationship. And yet we expect to do it without support. We have coaches and mentors and teachers and bosses in every area of our life, but we think that having it in our relationship means something, and it doesn't. So access support in whatever form feels good to you, whether that's a coach or a therapist or a pastor or a friend. Get support for your relationship, a book, a video, whatever. Get support for your relationship. You deserve it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carolyn. I have really enjoyed our conversation here today, and I really believe our audience has as well. So how can our audience connect with you? I know you mentioned that you have a worksheet that you developed. Tell us a little bit more about that and how they can get that worksheet and connect with you as well.
Sure. I would love for them to have it. I'm trying to get it out there because I just really want couples to have support. It's the 5 tips to reviving your relationship. It's actually the 5 tips, 5 easy tips to get out of your relationship rut by this weekend. It is the weekend as we're recording this, but it's sort of like in 5 days you can revive your relationship, and you can reach that at my at the website, which is secureconnections.com/5 tips. secureconnectionscoaching.com/5 tips. But I'm Secure Connections Coaching on Instagram and on Facebook. I have little videos with little 30-second, 1-minute clips to help people with little tidbits. And those are those places have links to all the stuff. So Instagram and Facebook is probably the easiest way.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Carolyn, for sharing that with you. And thank you for sharing this time, your expertise with me and our audience here. So again, I appreciate you, and I'm grateful that our paths crossed. Actually, you reached out to me. So I'm really grateful that you reached out to make yourself available for this. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I reached out to you because your podcast just spoke to me about what your mission is here. So I'm so grateful that you have this platform to help women really connect to themselves and create that orgasmic life that they deserve. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carolyn. And to our audience, thank you so much for tuning in with us today. And as always, remember to be bold, brilliant, and completely unstoppable of what your heart truly desires in your life and in your relationships. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Sorry, I lost my mouse. There we go.